Is this the number one copper company to invest in? This is going to be analysis of Freeport McMoran, and their ticker symbol is FCX on the New York Stock Exchange. So who's Freeport? So they were formed in 1981 of a merger between Freeport Minerals and McMoran Oil and Gas. They are a massive producer of copper, and they also produce significant amounts of gold and molybdenum. Their current market capitalization is around 60 billion. They have lots of mines in the US, in particular Arizona. They also built and own the giant copper mine in Indonesia, the Gratsberg mine. So currently, we have about $60 billion in market cap, 4.5 billion dollars in cash, about $10 billion in debt. So we're looking at about a net debt of about $6 billion, somewhere in there. So they produce about 3 billion pounds of copper a year, and so that comes up with a revenue at around today's copper prices of 15 billion, with costs of about 7 billion. Gold, they produce 875,000 ounces, 100,000 ounces a year. This is quite significant. I'd probably put them around like the 12th or 15th largest gold producer in the world. Not quite sure on that, but it's very significant. But their costs for gold also seem relatively high. Then they also have 76 million pounds of molybdenum. So when we add all the revenue up, we're looking at about $17.6 billion of revenue a year, with costs being around $8.7 billion a year. So they're making about $8.8 billion a year. So if we do a forward PE ratio based on that, we're looking at 6.81. And if we do basically an earnings divided by market cap, is going to be 15 cents per dollar invested, or a 15% yield is kind of how I look at that. So we go over to the reserves. They've got 60 million ounces total of resources and for gold, which equates to about $110 billion. And then they have 125 billion pounds of copper resources, which equates to just about $600 billion worth. So if we look at the total value of their reserves or the resources of gold and copper, we're looking at about $700 billion, with resources divided by market cap of about $11.53. So basically every dollar you invest, you're getting about $12 worth of resources or metal in the ground. So here I compare Freeport to the other major miners. So I just compared Freeport to Newmont, Gold, Barrick, and then the PGM producers, so Sibanye, Impala, and Anglo American. So their earnings to market cap ratio is relatively a fair bit higher than the gold companies at 15 cents. But compared to the platinum group metals producers, it's just not even close. These companies are just so undervalued, in my opinion. It's kind of nuts. And then we go over to resources. Again, Freeport has a fair bit more resources than Barrick and Newmont. But again, compared to the PGM producers in South Africa, it's just like it's an order of magnitude different compared to Sibanye. So again, Freeport looks significantly better deal than the gold mining companies, the majors right now. But they're still significantly, it's overpriced compared to what you can get for the PGM producers. So Freeport seems to provide significant value if the copper price remains high. I believe we'll need to see copper prices around $6 to $7 a pound before we start seeing the miners developing new mines. And that's really just because it's developing a copper mine you're probably looking at a $3 to $10 billion investment with that, and they're just really hard to find. Whereas like gold mines, you can be economical at much lower kind of ranges, and it might only take you $200 to $500 million to develop a new gold mine that's relatively small. They do have $5 billion in net debt, but within a year of high copper prices, that should be paid off because they're basically looking to be making about $9 billion a year. So it's like, I don't think it should be a problem for them to be able to pay about half of that off, or pay basically half their earnings for the year to pay off a bunch of that debt. So Freeport seems like a better value than the major gold producers at the moment, but still significantly lower value than the PGM producers. So I'm just slowly working my way through kind of like the major commodity producers and kind of seeing the relative valuation and seeing if there's anything that can kind of compare to the platinum group metals producers, because they just seem like such a good deal. But that's all for today's video. Thanks for watching.